All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mass MEP webinar event today that we are presenting with Tribal Vision. This is Lead Generation. I'm Haley Steele. I'm the marketing coordinator with Mass MEP. I'll be your moderator for this webinar. As you can see, I like to do, I don't know whether they're above me, next to me, below me. We start doing, like, where are they in the squares? We have Becca Dellenbaugh. She's the senior marketing manager, and Rob Meyer is the marketing manager, and they are both with Tribal Vision. Thank you all for joining us. You can see your mics are muted. There are plenty of ways, though, for you to engage with us this morning. We have a lot of polls. You can see if you are new to Zoom and have been living under a rock for the past 8 months, they're down on the bottom ribbon. We have the chat and we have the Q&A. The Q&A will be open. We'll be actively answering questions throughout the webinar. So throw some good questions in there for Becca and Rob. Maybe try to throw them off their game a little bit today and see what they can come up with. I doubt you will, but let's see what you can do. We also have the chat, and the chat, if you guys want to use that, you can chat amongst yourselves. And if there's something you and your colleagues want to share or a point you'd like to make, please use it for that purpose. Just remember, if you do have a question, it is probably a question that somebody else has as well. So please put those questions in there for us. If we do have time permitting at the end of the webinar, we will open the mics and we'll have you, if you can, there's a little hand wave symbol there, raise your hands, and we'll call on you for those questions. The polls that we have, they'll pop up throughout the webinar today. So we will put them up for a little bit of a time limit. It actually gives Becca and Rob the opportunity to kind of gauge from those answers as to the content that they would like to continue presenting. We are on Facebook Live this morning, so hello everybody out in the Facebook world. Unfortunately, you that are out there on Facebook watching us, you can't answer our polls, but we do ask that if you have any questions or comments, you can send them in to us through Facebook Live. So please go ahead and do that as well. We would love for you to do that. We will be respectful of your time. We do have an hour set aside for this, as we feel it's plenty of time for the content and the Q&A. Oh, wait, no, you guys are 2 hours. We have you guys for 2 hours today. This is the best. So you have tons of time today. This is great. So we will be respectful of it. If for some reason we roll over in time, and we don't get your questions, we will answer those questions and we'll send the answers back to you as you all put in an email to register for the event today. So we will, one of the biggest things we ask is at the completion of the webinar, you receive a notification from us at Mass MEP asking if you would complete an evaluation for the webinar. We use these evaluations to provide data for the trainings and insight for our continuous improvement on the training content that we deliver as our internal staff, and also for our third parties such as Tribal Vision. So please, if you could complete those evaluations, we'd really appreciate it. Also, because we are on Facebook Live, this video will live live on our Mass MEP Facebook page. So for some reason, if there was a dud in your office, didn't make it to the webinar today, they can still watch it on our Facebook. We like to call that the Mass MEP DVR, so that everybody can come back and watch the video at any time. We might have some information as well to you that we can get out, but there will be a follow-up email thanking you for joining us today. And if there's any content that we feel the need to put in there, we will send that along to you as well. So we're going to get the broadcast started. I'm going to turn the webinar over to Becca and Rob.
Thank you, Haley. Gosh, I'm going to be honest. When you said you have an hour, you scared me. I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm going to have to do some serious editing of these slides quick. Or I'm gonna have to talk really, really fast.
No, that's just, it's just such a normal, I say the same things all the time, so I apologize. You got 2.
You got me there. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today's webinar. Becca and I will be discussing the new normal in terms of sales structure and lead maximization. So cut over to our agenda here, but just to speak a little bit more in depth there, do want to set the stage that primarily today we're going to be talking about digital marketing tactics and approaches to digital lead source, simply because in light of COVID-19, some of those traditional avenues of marketing, lead sourcing, building a sales pipeline just don't work the way that they used to. And so in response, we're having to shift gears and really focus in on digital as a way to supplement some of those pieces of marketing and sales that are no longer, are no longer going to have the impact they had before. So in terms of our agenda today, we're going to start by taking a look at redefining marketing in the age of COVID-19. And then after we analyze some of the different trends that we're seeing from Tribal Vision's side, as well as, I mean, really, it's not specific to Tribal Vision. If you go, really any marketing publication today is talking about a lot of the things that we're going to discuss in that first section. But after we really dive into the current state of marketing and COVID-19's impact on it from there, we're going to give you a blueprint for sales prospecting that we've been using for a number of our clients since the outbreak of COVID-19. And then really after we discuss that lead sourcing piece, we're then going to dive into some tactics and show you exactly how you're going to leverage that lead list that you built using that lead sourcing strategy that we're going to share with you. After we go through those tactics, which here you see include email and a number of different areas in terms of email, social media, specifically around LinkedIn, and then paid search. And after we wrap up the paid search, we'll then talk to some of the reporting that you're going to want to have in place for those different marketing tactics so that you're able to track your performance, zero in on optimizations, so on and so forth. And after reporting, we'll then dive into what you see labeled here, bonus. We'll discuss some of the updates that you can make to your sales process. Actually, a lot of these are tried and true sales process updates that we've made internally at Tribal Vision, as well as they've recommended to a number of our clients and have had serious impact, positive impact rather, on their overall sales process in light of the fact that no one's entering board meetings, shaking hands, and kissing babies. So with that in mind, first up here, marketing redefined in the age of COVID. So, and actually, I'm going to move these little windows as I realize they're sort of covering up the slides, which is not helpful. All right, there we go. So in terms of marketing in the age of COVID, I think that the title of this slide really lays it out very well for you. Digital marketing and looking at digital marketing as a lifeboat in the new normal. Now, this quote that we start the slide off with, and don't worry, I'm not going to spend the whole webinar reading off what we have on the slide, but I do want to call attention to this because I think it is pretty impactful. So without wanting to sound too alarmist, in many cases, digital marketing strategy will be the deciding factor in whether businesses make it through the tough times ahead. This was from Bernard Marr in Forbes, and he had stated this back in March, right when lockdowns were really starting. And honestly, from hindsight, he couldn't have been more on the money. And I think that the stats that you see here on the page really reflect the truth of that quote. So first, on the left-hand side of the screen, you see cancellation of live events. And really, when it comes to COVID-19 and its impact on both sales and marketing, I think it really does come down to these two pieces that have had the most impact. The first being, like I said, the cancellation of live events. And then on the flip side, on the right side of your screen, you see the loss of face-to-face prospect meetings. So obviously, both of these have had a tremendous impact, but like how substantial that impact has been, well, you see 87% of polled event marketers say that their events have been canceled due to COVID. I will call out that that stat is actually from June of 2020. So since then, that number has only ticked up. There's just not been substantial polling around how many live events have been canceled just because, there are no live events really happening at this point. And on the flip side, you see that 70% of buyers say that they prefer only digital interactions at this point with potential organization that they might be doing business with. And so with those two stats in mind, you see the stats below that really reflect what impact that has ultimately had. On the hand of live events, you see of marketing budgets that traditionally had been dedicated to trade shows, now 83% of that budget is being reallocated to things, a lot of the things that we're going to discuss today, actually: paid search, social media, email. And then on the face-to-face meeting side, you see of B2B businesses that have 91% of B2B businesses have transitioned to a completely virtual sales approach during COVID-19. And as a person who works in the sales side of Tribal Vision, I can say that, my gosh, in the last 9 months, I have never spent so much time on Zoom meetings. Meetings that used to just be phone calls are now all switched over to Zoom. And that's really, honestly, because people, on the one hand, they want to continue to have that face-to-face interaction, but we can't do it in person. So video and, something like Zoom or Microsoft's offering, so on and so forth, those have really taken the place. But all of this really kind of comes down to what you see in the center of the slide here, that the traditional approach to marketing just no longer works. Those being the face-to-face event, the face-to-face meeting on the sales side, and then the live event on the marketing side. And so how do we negotiate the loss of those two vital pieces of both sales and marketing? Well, digital really is the solution here. So with this in mind, want to take a look quickly at, and these are pretty compelling statistics here around marketing during a downturn. And actually, this research comes from 2008. Peter Field, economic researcher, actually showed that, and this was really zeroing in on marketing trends and advertising trends in 2008 when we had the very substantial recession. Some interesting findings were identified. So you'll see here, if you take a look at the slide as well as the graph on the right, that if organizations cut their advertising budget and their competitors don't, those organizations that cut their advertising budgets are the organizations that ultimately lose market share, that lose sales, and ultimately have more ground to make up when that recession is passed. So, and you see in bold, because really this is the point to take away from all this, is that this means that organizations that maintain their marketing presence, maintain some kind of advertising budget during the downturn, those are the same organizations that can expect revenue growth during that downturn. Now, while it may not be as substantial as that growth may have been in a bull market, those organizations still are going to see growth. Now, on the flip side, it's those organizations that don't invest in advertising and don't keep up their marketing efforts. They're the people that ultimately, when the downturn ends, when the recession subsides, those are going to be the organizations that are further behind, that it's going to take longer for them to get back the market share that they had, if they're actually ever able to get that market share back. And they're ultimately going to see, their profits impacted greater just because of that loss of market share. So again, this really goes back to this idea that in terms of advertising, then we need to be focused on the digital side. And actually, just to reinforce how really there is a tremendous opportunity in digital today, here we have some stats around overall traffic to digital channels after COVID-19 broke out. So you see across the board, there is a significant uptick in the amount of traffic on digital channels, simply because, I say it, I guess it seems so obvious, but because we just have a lot more people spending a lot more time on their computers, this means that there's that many more opportunities to put a digital display ad in front of an individual, send them an marketing email that they might engage with. think about webinars. In the last, in the last 9 months, I myself, I have attended probably 4 times the number of webinars I ordinarily would, and I think I've presented in twice as many webinars as I ordinarily would. And this is really largely because there's more of an appetite for these sorts of engagements because we don't have those things like in-person meetings, live events, so on and so forth. So this really emphasizes the fact that while we have had to deal with those significant losses of channels for both sales and marketing, there are opportunities for us to make up that ground, and it really is in the digital space. Okay, so with kind of the stage set around why we really do want to be zeroing in on digital marketing today, we first want to take a brief pause from the digital piece and talk about prospecting, because really any of the digital activities that we're going to describe today are really going to ultimately go back to how strong, or the success of those marketing strategies are really going to hinge upon how strong the prospecting list that you built at the outset are. So it's really important today, in light of COVID-19, for you to adapt your prospecting process to today's reality. Ultimately, it comes down to this: those organizations that don't actively prospect now and wait until COVID-19 is passed, till the economy is on further footing, those people are going to be at a tremendous disadvantage. So in terms of what types of organizations are best for you to be zeroing in on today, there's really 2 types of organizations to think about. On the one hand, you have the 50% of organizations that you likely want to avoid. Those are the organizations that have B2B buyers that have postponed purchasing decisions simply because of COVID-19. And then on the flip side, you have the organizations that have not done that. Now, the question is how do we figure out who is avoiding purchasing decisions and who is not? Well, ultimately, from what we've found is that it ultimately does come down to a couple of sets of targeting, really specific to the size of the organization and the industry that organization is in. Now, from an industry perspective, there are absolutely some industries, and envious for those industries out there, but there are definitely industries that, because of COVID-19, are enjoying favorable tailwinds. The situation with the pandemic just presents an opportunity for there to be a greater interest in their product or what their offering is. And then in addition to those tailwind industries, then of course there are also the essential industries. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what those potential industries may be. But just really think of the industries you want to target as falling in one of the camps, either tailwind or essential. And then on this, in terms of size of those organizations that you're going to want to target, it really does come down to size. Smaller organizations have disproportionately been negatively impacted by the pandemic we're all dealing with today. And so as a consequence, that means that it's better business for you to focus on larger clients that may not have faced the had to endure the brunt of COVID-19 as significantly as smaller organizations. Once you've zeroed in on those 2, we'll then talk about well, the last step will be how you go about implementing sourcing prospects and those that meet those 2 criteria, but we'll speak to that in a slide or 2 here. So I mentioned that we were going to break down those particular industries that you want to target a little bit further. So this slide really shows, and obviously there are definitely other industries that fall in each of these buckets. So by no means don't think of this as an exhaustive list, but it really is important to think of this entire prospecting process as a supply and demand exercise. So looking first at tailwinds, are those industries that are counter-pandemic industries: information technology, software as a service, e-learning, home improvement, telehealth. And like I said, this is just a small sampling of those industries, but these are all industries that have seen an uptick in interest in their product simply because of COVID-19. Then in the middle here, you have the, as I labeled them, pandemic agnostic industries that are just not impacted in a significant way because no matter what, they're essential. This first and foremost, manufacturing. So pretty much everyone that's in this webinar, you fall in the essential space. But in addition to that, there's professional services, waste management, construction, insurance. All these essential industries, really, regardless of the pandemic, are seeing growth just because demand for them continues with or without face masks. And then on the headwind side, these are the organization or the industries where the pandemic has ultimately negatively impacted their potential growth. And here, apparel, fashion, tourism, brick and mortar stores, so on and so forth. I feel like that list, in terms of the headwind, I feel like that's the list that's probably easiest to generate, right? But in terms of these three buckets of potential industries to target, it's really that headwind industry that you want to be avoiding. So with that in mind, after you've went through the process of kind of figuring out what some of those potential target industries are that either are essential or are experiencing tailwinds due to the pandemic, it's then a matter of figuring out how you can begin to shift your focus up market to larger organizations. This is by no means to suggest that you need to just avoid small businesses altogether, because of course small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. But there is always the danger that having the expression, right, having all your eggs in one basket, right? The idea here is that we want to avoid putting too much of an emphasis on those small businesses, because if some of them fold and they're a cornerstone of your organization's sales, then that's going to have a substantially negative impact on your bottom line. So ultimately, what we want to do is diversify your client base by instead of targeting the whole gamut of different kinds of organizations, plugging in larger organizations with this prospecting process, so that you have more diversity and you have some larger clients that ultimately are just not going to be as susceptible to the negative side of the pandemic that we're all facing. So how you go about doing this, really there's three buckets that you want to look at with your targeting that we've laid out here: revenue, headcount, number of locations. And really, I mean, you can use any combination of these, but you're going to play around with those different combinations and really figure out what the sweet spot is for potential target organization for your company. So some other potential factors that you can include here, in addition to revenue, headcount, location: diversity of service. Organization that has a larger diversity of services is typically a larger company. Awards that they've received, industry affiliations. You can even take a quick look at their website. Typically, websites that look more expensive come from companies that are larger and have just a larger marketing budget. That typically indicates that they're a company that has a larger revenue. So in terms of those three pieces, though, that I spoke to off the bat: revenue, headcount, location size. With revenue, this is data that's very typically available regardless of the organization. Things like Owler, Zoom Info, they'll have revenue information for the specific company. You can also always look at headcount. This is available on LinkedIn. Companies that have a larger headcount are going to just in general be larger organizations, right? And then the last piece, location count. So the company that has 5 locations is larger than the organization that has 1. So just kind of looking at those 3 to really figure out who is the best targets for us, who fits our sweet spot. Now, in terms of sourcing prospects within each one of those, there's a number of different ways to do it. I'm not going to go through the actual process of how you find those, but first up, you have the subscription databases. This is things like Zoom Info, Discover Org, so on and so forth, where they have a database of information. You subscribe to the platform, and then you're able to pull email addresses, so on and so forth, of individuals that meet your target criteria. You also have the publicly accessible databases. This is things like Inc. 5000, the U.S. Small Business Administration. A great example of a potential list to get your hands on that can help you figure out potential organizations to target is the PPP loan recipient list. If there are any virtual trade shows that you attend, there's another potential avenue to get a publicly accessible list that you can use. And then the others. So you have scraping tools. There's a number of these out there, but basically like they can go onto websites, find email addresses, that sort of thing. There's a number of different scraping tools. Web Scraper is one. Lead IQ is one that I've used personally that I'd recommend. Number of different scraping tools out there though. And then the last piece, which I think is probably one of the most important that I think gets overlooked a lot, is reevaluating your past prospects. And I will add an asterisk there as well. Reevaluating past clients. You have a database of names of individuals that didn't pull the trigger at some point in the past or did and have since went their separate ways. But they've already established the beginnings of a relationship with your organization. It all makes sense to try to leverage that low-hanging fruit and see if there is any opportunity there in those organizations. So definitely make a point to consider re-engaging both past prospects and past clients. So with all that information around prospecting detailed out, the question becomes, what on earth do we do once we have these lists of prospects, right? So to answer that question, the first area we're going to discuss is email. So I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague Becca, who is going to speak to some tactics to leverage on email.
Great. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. Thanks, Rob, for teeing this up. So we just talked through what is the most pragmatic, intelligent way to sort of gather leads right now, given the abnormal COVID circumstances. Now, how do you target those people in an equally current and efficient way? So one of the tactics that we recommend is called cold calling 2.0. Typically you would expect, okay, let's say you just went through all of the steps that Rob just detailed. You've got a list of new prospects that you think are going to be a good fit. Send it over to your sales team, and they sort of take it and go down the list calling. Cold calling 2.0, as we're defining it here, sort of allows you to take that large list, but reach out to it in an automated way that comes across as very personalized and also has sort of ongoing outreach. So cold calling 2.0 is deploying a set of emails to that new prospect list that you developed, or even that you continue developing over a period of time throughout COVID. So essentially the emails that get sent out, you might have a series of 5 emails or 8 emails that get sent out over a series of a couple weeks through your email marketing platform. But the difference here is that these are not going to be branded. They're going to look like they come directly from a sales rep. So you're able to send plain text emails. You can add customized fields. So it says, hey, Rob, I see that your company, tribal vision, et cetera, et cetera. So just really allows you to get personalized within emails and have ongoing touch points with those prospects. Not to say you wouldn't want to take the cold calling 1.0 approach as well and also call these people, but adding email, again, is shifting to this digital marketing focus and allowing you to get in front of these new people more frequently and often with more success. So that sort of stages here for cold calling 2.0, defining your ideal target profiles with everything Rob just mentioned and sourcing contacts at those accounts. Ideally, multiple contacts versus just one person at each company, if possible. Then prospecting, so sending cold emails, setting calls with people who've maybe opened your emails, which obviously you can see through your email marketing platforms, and trying to schedule demos and appointments, and then trying to really transfer that momentum into your actual sales cycle. So if you've got a new opportunity, someone has responded to an email, or you see, maybe they've opened multiple emails and now you can try giving them a call because they're qualified. How do you get those people into your sort of normal sales cycle and push them in the right direction? One other piece of cold calling 2.0 that we recommend.
Sorry, Becca.
Thanks, Rob. One other piece. Next slide.
Oh, next slide. All right.
Yep.
I jumped the gun, but I guess I did.
One other piece of sort of support that we recommend for cold calling 2.0 is in the outreach that you are sending to these cold prospects, giving them some content that they're going to find interesting and engaging, so that you're giving a little bit before you're expecting them to take some type of action. So for example, in the first emails in the series where they might not have any idea who you are, you might send introductory content that's really focused on your brand so they can start to understand what you're about. So could be sell sheets, you might send them to a landing page, maybe you have an introductory video about your company, giving them that first touch of who you are and what you do and why they should care. Then in the middle, email touch points, you might want to include more detailed, useful information about your brand, testimonials proving that you're credible and you've seen results before, white papers, sample reports, content that they can really sort of sink their teeth into and sort of understand why you're credible and what you do, and start to think about how that could apply to them. And then finally, towards the end of the email series, you might think about social proof. So sharing online reviews or case studies that really hopefully bring it home that you're really credible and can do what you say you're doing. Next slide, Rob. There are a few platforms that we particularly like to use for this type of cold calling 2.0 outreach. My personal favorite is PersistIQ. It essentially lets you set up multiple sales flows. So you could have, here's a series of 5 cold calling 2.0 plain text emails that I'm sending out to my manufacturing audience, and maybe they're a little bit tailored to manufacturers. You can also add automated emails and give your sales team sort of reminders for when they should be sending phone calls and calling particular people that are in the workflow. Another platform is Engage, ZoomInfo Engage. So you've got sort of multiple options that allow you to set up these types of campaigns. And then as we alluded to earlier, you can use the data that you're seeing in one of these platforms. For example, someone's opened 5 times, they've opened all 5 emails, or they've clicked on emails, but they haven't responded to me yet. Now you're able to prioritize that list of prospects that you've put together, and the ones that have been the most engaged, those float to the top. Those you send to your sales team for continued outreach. So it just gives you a little bit of insight into who's engaging and who your sales team should be able to focus more of their effort and energy on.
Absolutely. One thing I will add here is just, because I assume there's probably a few sales folks on the call today, or the webinar today. I know the minute that you hear automated platform, it's like, wait, no, that's marketing stuff, and that sounds extremely complicated, and I don't want anything to do with it. With Persist IQ, this is a very very intuitive platform. Actually, both Persist IQ and Engage, both very intuitive platforms that if you know how to set up an email, then you know how to do this. It's just a matter of uploading a larger list and then deploying it to, 300 people opposed to emailing one at a time. So don't feel like this has to be an activity that is owned by marketing. If you're in sales, you can absolutely bolt this into your sales process. And ultimately, it's going to increase your sales velocity because you're able to hit that many more prospects in a given day. And you're not just chained to the phone trying to make, make your quota of daily call. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, good point, Rob. And I sort of real life using this type of outreach where we've seen it be successful is, let's say you've done all the upfront work of building a large prospect list. Instead of sending that all at once, you can set criteria in Persist IQ or Zoom Info Engage to say, I want this to be sent to 50 people per week. That way you're not, inundated with the outreach, and it can kind of be a, self-sustaining, continuous type of outreach.
Absolutely.
Great. So that was cold calling 2.0. There are also multiple other ways that you can better leverage sort of your in-house email database in ways that you probably aren't doing right now. Or if you are, awesome, credit to you. So the ones that we're going to touch on here are doing automation. So this is similar to cold calling 2.0 in that we're looking at setting up workflows and having sort of, automated outreach to those people. But with automation, what you're able to do is set up behavior or time-based email messages. So for example, if someone signs up for your newsletter on your website, you can just immediately through automation send them a thanks for signing up, and then they get your newsletters moving forward. We'll touch on that a little bit more in a second. You can also use email in a retargeting capacity. So you've got this list of prospects that you've built, or maybe your customers that you're looking to upsell, or past customers that you're looking to win back. You can leverage those lists that you pull out of your email marketing platform on other platforms. So if you're doing paid search, which we'll talk about in a sec, if you're doing LinkedIn advertising, which we'll also dive into, you can actually manually upload those lists and use them as targets so that people are not only receiving emails from you through your email marketing platform, they can also get, LinkedIn ads, they can get, the sales outreach, they can get targeted on paid search. So you can just add more frequency of touch points and outreach to those people that you think are the most perfect prospects for you. On platforms like social media, you also can go one step further and take that matched list of prospects. You can actually say, hey, Facebook or LinkedIn, these are people that I think are really good fits for me that I've already found. Use your algorithm to understand who those people are and find lookalike audiences that you can actually target. So lookalike audiences built off of your key prospecting list, then extend your audience much further. Two opportunities there to use your lists and leverage them across some of the digital marketing channels that we're about to talk about. Going into a little bit more detail on marketing automation. So automation, again, is sort of where you're in an ongoing basis, you set up different workflows that you can allow people to opt in or depending on their behavior, send out customized ongoing email results. And the nice thing about marketing automation is that other than the cost of the platforms, which we've seen get much more competitive and less expensive as marketing automation has picked up in popularity in the past couple of years, they're less expensive. So other than that monthly cost to have a subscription to an email marketing platform, sending emails, deploying as many emails and campaigns and automated workflows as you want, it's all free. So a few ideas you might want to think about in terms of marketing automation. One would be to new prospects. So let's say you've got a form on your website, it's for a white paper, you've got it gated. You can set up a workflow in marketing automation so that anytime someone fills out that form and gives you their email address, they get immediately entered into a workflow where you might have a series of a couple emails that go out across a week or two that say, hey, welcome to Tribal Vision. Here's what we're all about. Here's some next steps or calls to action that you might want to take a look at. And looking at the poll results here, it looks like we're sort of split down the middle of people who use automated email right now versus people who don't. So certainly some opportunity there. You can use automation to new customers. So you could think of that like it's a good way to augment the onboarding that they're maybe already getting. So perhaps you send out a couple emails to all new customers to say, hey, welcome to Tribal Vision. Did you know we also do X service? And sort of, complete that onboarding process. You can also set up automations to past customers. So maybe there's, a list of people who haven't purchased from you in, the past 6 months, and let's get those people back on board. Or to existing customers, which it seems like in the poll that's running here, a lot of people are responding that you give updates, you give newsletters. That type of content is really good going out to existing customers because you want to stay, just top of mind with them, make sure that your content is always in the back of their mind, and also that they're up to date on any, new products or new information or new opportunities that you have to share with them.
Question for you, Becca. I know that when it comes to like reaching out to existing customers, sometimes organizations are a little gun shy just because they don't want to be bombarding their existing client base with email messages. What do you feel like is a good frequency to send out like a message to your existing customers?
It's very dependent on your industry. I'm sure everyone on the call sees with any retail emails that you might get, maybe you're getting a couple per week. But if I'm thinking with my manufacturing hat on, a couple emails per week is going to turn people off. So I think thinking specifically about the manufacturing industry, I'd maybe look at a frequency of a few emails per month to your existing customers, and then thinking about a time frame for past customers. Potentially if they haven't, purchased or engaged within 6 months, you don't want to let them go, a couple of years without trying to re-engage them. So that might be
right.
So I'm jumping in here because there's a question that came up on Facebook Live, and this might be the time to do it. And I think you may have just answered that question, Becca, where, what do you do if you start to notice a little bit of a decline in the email engagements? Are we overloading? What can you maybe talk to that?
Great question. Yeah, I think there's a couple factors that might be the case there. You might see email drop off if your frequency is too high, right? So, you're sending out emails too often and your audience is getting a little bit tired. You might see drop off if people aren't seeing a lot of value in your content. So maybe it's the type of outreach that you're doing, and they don't want a newsletter every week. Maybe they need some different content in there to mix it up. Maybe you're sort of a combination of those. Maybe some of your audience likes the frequency and likes the content, but you can get a little bit more segmented with your lists and say, maybe this is getting a little bit complicated, but hey, here's a group of people I can pull out of my larger list that, they are opening and they are engaging, and I see that they like the content. Maybe those people you pull into a separate list and you can send more frequently if you're, able to put together that content. So I think it's a bunch of factors, but the open rate and the click-through rate are really, really good indicators of if people are interested in your content and if it's hitting home.
Yep. I echo that exact. Well, there we go. I was going to say I definitely echo that with the click-through rate. I mean, open is always so important, but if you see your open rates going down, but your click-through rate is staying level, then okay, well, it's still good content. We might just be sending too many messages. So definitely keep an eye on that the click-through, because that'll give you an idea of, are we putting information in front of them that they find compelling and do want to read through. And if you're seeing them in tandem both go down, then we're getting them too much content and the content itself isn't as compelling. So
yep. And if you're in that scenario where you see your open rates and click-through rates, so all of your engagement metrics decreasing, one thing that you could do is set up a split test where you send half of your list this set of emails and half of your list, maybe they get the status quo emails. I know that's a little bit more work, but it could help you identify, okay, hey, if I change the content, I'm seeing those numbers go back up. Or if I decrease the frequency or shift something around, that's solving the decrease that you're seeing. So that's something I'd keep in your back pocket and test out if you're seeing metrics that you're not happy with.
So you are getting a ton of questions right now, which is great because these are really good questions. So somebody wrote in, what do you mean by drop off? How do you recognize if mailing frequency is too often? And what would be a good open or click-through rate? Great question.
That again is going to be fairly dependent by industry, but if I was, had to give a range here, I would say an open rate, you might look to be, 10 to 30%. I know that's a very wide range, but I think, for Tribal Vision emails, we'd look for, around 20% of people opening. Obviously not everyone's going to open every email, and that's fine. Certain subject lines are going to catch your attention versus not, but generally that would be a good range to look at. Mm-hmm. And then for click-through rate, obviously that's going to be smaller because it has to come from the segment of people who've already opened. But I would aim for a click-through rate of, 3 to 5%. Again, these are, total ballpark answers. It's really hard to nail down since it's so industry specific. And also really, it hinges on the quality of the audience that you have in your platform, right? So if it's a smaller, better list that you've really curated, those numbers I would expect to be higher. If it's a larger list, you've got a bunch of prospects in there who maybe aren't familiar and not willing to open your emails, might be a little bit lower. So depends on a lot of factors, but I think that's generally a ballpark you might look at.
So just in case there's anybody that may not get click through, can you just give them a little idea as to what a click through actually means?
Sure. So if you receive an email in your inbox and you open it, then you count that counts towards the open rate of the emails. If someone then from there clicks on a link in the email, so you might have a call to action button that says, hey, go check out our website and learn more about this service that we offer. If anyone who clicks that gets counted as a click, so that would be your open rate and your click-through rate.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great questions. Keep them coming. On the next slide, we just sort of laid out a sample workflow. So let's say, for example, the trigger here is someone signs up for, someone downloads an asset that you have on the website that you have gated with an email address. Once they download that, you can sort of set it up so that they immediately get entered into this workflow for anyone who's downloaded that asset. And email 1, might be an introduction of your brand. Hey, here's the basics that you need to know about Tribal Vision, and welcome. We're glad you're here. Then, if they open it, you can set up logic so that if they're engaging with you, if they open it, then you send them the next email. If not, maybe you slow down on the frequency. So here, email 2, we're saying, the purpose is to provide additional information if they've opened your email. So you might have supplementary content about, hey, here's some differentiators about Tribal Vision that you might not know already. And then, you can sort of continue in that fashion where you can have the email sends hinge on the behaviors that people are taking. So you can have all of this conditional logic, or you could just set it up to send, email 1, 2, and 3 to everyone who takes that initial action. Great, so that was all about some different marketing automation workflows that you can set up. This slide goes back to how you can use some of your email lists on other platforms so that you're really maximizing the impact of your marketing on this list that you've built that should be a really, really good fit list for you. So as we mentioned earlier, you can use your existing lists. You can upload them to Google, Facebook, LinkedIn if you're going to do advertising on those channels. And as long as you have all of their minimum size is 1,000, as long as you can upload at least 1,000 contacts that get matched on those platforms, then you can use that exact audience in each of these different channels. And on Google, you can have a certain campaign that only goes out to those people because they're good fit or high quality or whatever. And then you also have the ability, once you have those lists updated in any of these platforms, you can build a lookalike list. So you can build off of the list that you already have, and each of those different platforms, their algorithms will help you find contacts to what you already have, so you can expand your audience. One other final thing that you're able to do in each of these platforms, which we are going to get into more detail on, is you can set up retargeting audiences. So in addition to targeting your prospect list, you could also set up a retargeting audience that can target anyone who's visited your website. You can even say, I want just people who visited this page on my website. You can get as granular as you want, but that way, sort of again, you can focus some of your marketing efforts on these channels towards the people that are already engaged. They're probably qualified. They just didn't take, the step that you're looking for them to take to get in touch with you and start a conversation. That was a whole bunch about email. Any questions before we dive into some LinkedIn tactics?
None right now. So I would say
All
jump
right.
right in. Deep end only.
All right.
Watch the lower end.
Before I cut over to the LinkedIn, the one thing I'll just add on to the end there regarding retargeting is that in the end, the idea here is that we want to get to 7 impressions. That's sort of the golden number where if you present your brand, your offering to people 7 times, they're more likely to take an action. And remarketing gives you that many more at bats because it's not just they hit your website, they didn't make a purchase, then they're gone and they just vanish into the ether. Rather, you've got them in that retargeting list. You can continue to show them display ads, reinforcing, wait a second, you liked my product, you just didn't make a purchase on Tuesday, but you're going to. And after a while, they'll finally, come around and go, you know what, that was a good offering, I'm going to go ahead and make a purchase. So that's why the retargeting is really just so powerful. On the LinkedIn side, so if before we were talking about some of the email opportunities with LinkedIn, really because our assumption today is that a lot of us are going to be B2B focused. we're really just going to talk about LinkedIn today, but know that Facebook has a variety of powerful advertising options on it as well. But really, the reason why LinkedIn is just so important for any kind of sales and marketing effort is because here you have a platform that the information on it is, well, one, it's all focused on an individual's professional life. So it's, their work history, their skills, so on and so forth, which is, so valuable when it comes to trying to find people to target with your product. But then the other factor that makes LinkedIn so powerful is that people keep it up to date. You go onto one of these databases, and there's always the potential that, well, maybe this email address is out of date, or maybe their job title has changed. I don't know anybody who doesn't, the minute they have a job title change, I think the first thing they do after they call their mom is they go and they change their job title on LinkedIn, just because that's kind of the world that we live in now, where LinkedIn reflects your professional life. So that's really why the platform is so incredibly valuable from a sales and marketing perspective. And here on this slide, we just have some additional stats to back that up. 170 million US-based professionals have LinkedIn profiles. I think another one that's really significant when it comes to using the platform for sales and marketing efforts is that nearly half of the people on LinkedIn are upper management. When I see upper management, I think one thing: decision maker. So I mean, half the audience on LinkedIn are decision makers. And then a couple of the other ones here that are significant: 94% of B2B marketers on social media publish on LinkedIn. So I mean, this is not a niche any longer. Everybody is on LinkedIn. Everybody's posting to it. 91% of executives rate LinkedIn as their first choice for professionally relevant content. Again, reinforcing that if you're going to post content out in the digital space, LinkedIn is the place to be doing it. So kind of with the stage set of why LinkedIn is so important today, the first piece that we're going to talk about is really relates to your profile on LinkedIn. So and by profile, I don't mean your personal profile. I'm talking about the company profile, although your personal profile is equally important. But when it comes to the company profile, it's crucial that before you do any kind of marketing or sales activity on LinkedIn, you have your company profile as well as your employee profiles as complete and up to date as possible. And the reason for that is because if you're posting a piece of content on LinkedIn and you're putting advertising dollars around to support that piece of content to reach target audiences, there's a good chance that somebody in your target list is going to get a piece of content that you put out, whether it's a case study, a white paper, whatever. They're going to see that piece of content, and before they read it, they're going to click on your company, and they're going to end up on the company page, and they're going to look at that, and they're going to very quickly size up: is this organization a serious organization that I want to engage with or not? And the way that they're going to evaluate that, your seriousness, is really by deciding, is their profile up to date? Does it look professional? Does it have the kind of information that is at this point standard to have in a company profile? And so that really amounts to ensuring that your company overview information is as comprehensive and complete as possible. The contact information on your company overview is as up to date and complete as possible. That the individuals that work for your organization are linked to your company profile. That their individual profiles are professional, that they have professional headshots, or at least professional looking headshots, that you have the banner image deployed on your profile. All these little pieces are just important because in the end, a potential prospect is just going to take a second to look at your profile and size it up. And if one of those pieces is missing, that's a red flag to somebody who spends a lot of time on LinkedIn. As, yeah, this organization doesn't know how to do LinkedIn. Look, the profile is incomplete. So you want to make sure that all of those kind of profile pieces are in place and are as dialed up as much as possible. But then the other thing that you also want to take some care to make sure is addressed as best as you can is the point down here in the bottom left corner of the content that is on your LinkedIn profile. And by that, I mean the individual postings. So, on the one hand, you want to be posting frequently enough so that it appears that your account is active. So, I mean, a red flag when I go on a LinkedIn account is if they haven't posted in 6 months, they really don't take LinkedIn that seriously. So, you want to make sure that you're posting at a I don't want to say a super high frequency, but at a higher frequency, posting like once a week. I think that's adequate. And then, the pieces of content that you're posting on the channel as well, that those lend themselves to reinforcing your company's credibility and build your brand's name recognition within the channel. So before we really talk about anything else with LinkedIn, just make sure that you've kind of checked these boxes off. And, if you're unsure about how does our company profile on LinkedIn stack up, pick your favorite competitor that you feel like does an excellent job at LinkedIn. Look at their profile and look at yours and see, is there anything that they've done that I'm missing? And if there is, then do your best to check off that box that you've identified.
So we have a question, Rob.
Yep.
The question is,
yep.
Today there's a lot of buzz going around about LinkedIn profile pictures being changed because of the real new normal that we're all in today. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, a professional who maybe a CEO has a really great headshot, and then now in what we call or considering the new normal, they reposted their picture and it was them as they are today, kind of like maybe their hair was wet or a little bit more laid back. So what are, do you think, obviously you don't have a crystal ball. Well, I don't know, you may have a crystal ball, but if, do you think, like, are you still are going with, keep it as tailored to your brand, basically, as you are for what you represent for your company?
That's a fantastic question. I mean, because I did rattle off, the point about, let's make sure that those headshots are professional. I think the key consideration here is that that it passes like the test of like if is it appropriate for a professional setting? I think is the key here. I mean, is it a profile picture that should be on Facebook and Instagram, or is it a profile picture that should be on LinkedIn? I mean, I don't think that by any means we all need to be in button downs and a tie. I think that especially considering the new normal, that doesn't really track because that's not everybody's day to day. But I think the important keyword is just professional. I think you still want to put forth the impression that you're a serious professional and that you're taking your LinkedIn activities seriously. Now, if that means that as the example, like you have wet hair or whatever it may be, wearing a short sleeve shirt, whatever that is, I think that's fine. I think it's just within put some guardrails there and make sure that it still feels professional.
So you have two more questions, and you may answer them.
Oh boy.
As you go into LinkedIn
Sure.
a little bit more. One of them actually might fall into this category. It says, is it okay to share LinkedIn company posts to your personal account regularly, or should personal
Absolutely
be different?
Absolutely, 100%. You shouldn't you should always do that, I think, is the best way to answer that question. 100%.
What you could do too, just to give it a little bit of a personal spin, is add a little bit of content, a paragraph or a couple sentences about your thoughts about the content, just to make it original. But that way you're still representing the company, giving more, audience and getting more eyeballs on that content. So yeah, I think that's a great question. But if you want to just make it a little more personal, that's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually at Tribal Vision, when we have a particular piece of content that we want to get more eyes on, we'll actually send out an internal email to all of our employees letting them know, hey, I posted this on LinkedIn, I posted this on Facebook, it's on our Google My Business profile. Everybody go and like and share. I want to see some engagement out there. But when we do that, there are those individuals that that want to get an A+ on their paper. They actually take the link, they write their own caption, and they repost it as themselves. And I think that that's an excellent way to go, because to Becca's point, it makes it like you're that much more engaged in content that your company is producing versus just, hey, I click like, I'm done, right?
Yeah, no, they always need that share, need that extra touch point somewhere. So there's
Yes,
two more questions now that have come up. The one question is, and I don't know if you will get into this or not, is what is your opinion on the value of LinkedIn premium services? Are you going to touch on that?
Oh, yes. Let's table that one for a moment.
Okay. All right. So we'll table that one, Brian. You will get your question answered. The next question, you may get into this one as well too. Should we always funnel leads to a central site, or should we develop a shell simpler on top site to gather information and harvest info from the leads? That's a great question.
Actually, and Becca, did you follow that? I think I lost the question a little bit in the middle there.
Yeah, this is another one we will talk about a little bit. I would say in general, if you are paying to get any type of leads, you never want to just drop them on your homepage. You want to give them a more custom experience, whether that, it speaks to, what industry they're in, and it speaks to, exactly their pain points. Or if it's a particular asset that they just downloaded, or, a conversation you just had with them, the more specific you can get with following that experience through to the website, the better. So I think that was the question. And I would always go with more customized based on whatever you know about that audience or that person.
Okay. All right. So
And
we'll touch on that. And
we'll touch on that a little bit more for a couple different channels coming up.
All right, cool. All right.
To answer that question though about the value of the premium services on LinkedIn, I actually that cues up this slide perfectly, so I'm gonna dive into that one now.
Your poll results did too. So just so you know, your poll results they're pretty obvious in your audience. So this is a great lead in for them, because by the looks of it, nobody uses this at all. So.
Okay. Oh, well, excuse me. Those clicking up to where the poll results come out on my screen is right next to the button that makes the slide change. So I apologize for that. But yes, knowing that not many folks are leveraging LinkedIn Sales Navigator or some of the premium options on LinkedIn, that's great to know, because we'll definitely give you guys a full picture of like what the value is of adding that into your sales mix. So with Sales Navigator, the first thing that I want to call out here is that the Sales Navigator, definitely first step you want to do if you sign up for it is you want to get the app. With the app, you get real-time updates on the saved accounts and leads that you develop, and it's in the palm of your hand. You can set the notifications where, boom, if a change happens with one of the prospects or leads that you've identified, you're going to know about it instantly. So like, gone is the days of going back every couple of months and seeing what's going on with your prospects or potential prospects, like, in real time what's going on with them. And so it gives you, that kind of extra level of intel around what's going on with potential targets that you've identified. I mean, and I think that the tagline for downloading the app, it really sums up the value of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Find and engage the right buyer. That's exactly why our Tribal Vision's business development team uses Sales Navigator. It's why we recommend Sales Navigator to clients all the time, is it gives you a higher level of intel around potential buyers and allows you to better identify them before you start doing things like sending out emails or any of the other tactics that we've discussed so far today. So before I dive into the Sales Navigator a little bit further, I do want to outline the different premium accounts, because they do have very different, well, the services that are included differ pretty considerably. And where a lot of times it feels like, oh, well, we want to get the most sales, so I guess that means we should get the most expensive plan. By no means is that the case. So I do want to make sure we detail out what each one of these does. So with the business account, this is $59.99, $60 a month. A couple of things here that you're going to see in each one of them, and I am going to speak to more in depth in a couple of slides. But you'll see the in-mail messages, just really quick. If you're unaware, in-mail messages allow you to send a message directly to an individual that you're not connected with on LinkedIn, which is very powerful because it sidesteps that connection request step. The thing is with in-mails is that they are in a limited quantity each month. If you don't have a premium account, then you get 5. With the business account, you get 15. In addition to those 15 in-mail messages, you also can see who's viewed your profile. You can do unlimited browsing of companies on the platform. The reason that, and actually that is unlimited browsing is probably the most valuable piece of the business account, because anybody that's used LinkedIn for lead sourcing knows this. There is a cap on the number of company searches that you can do in a given month with a free account. After you look at so many company profiles in a given month, LinkedIn just shuts you down and says that you can't look at any more company profiles. This is to try to push you into a business account, but then this is also because people that are looking at a larger number of company accounts on LinkedIn, those are the individuals that are using LinkedIn for prospecting, right? Because who else would look at 100 plus company profiles on LinkedIn in a given month besides somebody that's doing prospecting there? So with the business account, that unlimited browsing, that's probably the most valuable piece. But then in addition to that, there are other business insights that you're able to glean out of the business premium account. But of the three, I think that the business account is a little bit more just research focused and is not as sales focused as the second one here, the Sales Navigator, which we're going to spend the bulk of the conversation talking about. With Sales Navigator, you get 20 in-mails per month, so it's a larger number of in-mails. But the key pieces here are the advanced search filters, which we're going to take a look at in a moment. Basically, just a lot more firmographic data that you can pull about individual profiles that you can't do with the free account that you can do with the Sales Navigator account. In addition to that, they also will provide you lead recommendations based on leads that you've highlighted or identified yourself in the past. So that's very powerful, because that's, again, if we're going back to when we were talking about LinkedIn's AI and machine learning that it's able to do based on individual prospects that you've identified as ideal, it's the same exact functionality where it will take triggers related to that, or data that you that associates with a lead that you've identified as like a good lead for you, and find you individuals that match that particular lead, and skipping over all the, but in the process skipping over all the extra legwork for you. So that's very valuable. And then, you know, it integrates with your email as well. So you can be sending messages straight out of your straight out of LinkedIn from your inbox. So, you know, again, makes it just more streamlined for you. And the last one, I'm not even going to speak to in depth at all, but the Recruiter Lite, $120 a month. And this is the one that really, I don't think, unless somebody slipped in, you're probably in the wrong webinar. This is really just applies to recruiters and people that are using the reverse sort on LinkedIn to find potential candidates for a job opening. So, you know, not really of any interest to anybody on this call. So with that being said, it's, you know, it's really right there in the middle, that Sales Navigator. That's probably the most valuable premium account for folks that we're speaking with today.
Yeah, and I wanted to chime in, just Brian, I know your question was, what really is the value? And Rob's going to get into a lot of specifics. It's dependent on what you put into it, right? It's not going to do all the work for you. So it's something that your team will need to invest in a little bit, but it just is this, can be this awesome resource where you can tap into all of LinkedIn's, you know, targeting and firmographic capabilities. So it's really, really powerful, but my asterisk on that would be, you know, it's something that you're going to have to invest in a little bit and just make part of, you know, your ongoing daily, weekly process.
Yeah, great point, Becca. I mean, it is very much a platform that you get out of it the time that you put in, and I think that this slide lends itself to that point very, very well. So one of the most valuable things with Sales Navigator is the advanced filter set that you're provided. And I mean, we've got a laundry list of the different parameters that you're able to use here on the right side of the screen: geography, job title, industry, company size, seniority level, so on and so forth. Not available on the regular free account, but this can allow you to figure out. I mean, and really, I mean, it is an experiment. I mean, it does require some experimentation. But this is going to allow you to figure out what is the combination of filters that get us to a list of potential buyers for our product that, you know, map perfectly to who I would want to be ideally spending my time reaching out to. And like I said, I mean, it's definitely requires some experimentation, but there's so many filtering combinations that you can do that you will ultimately end up with, you know, a very, very potent list of prospects that are likely to convert, because, you know, you're basing that targeting on, I mean, the best way to base that targeting is on, you know, your existing customers, right? You know that people that have a company this size, that are in this industry, that have this job title and XYZ are typically our customers. You build something similar into LinkedIn, and with some fine tuning, you can zero in on, these are the guys that we should be talking to, and forget the rest of them. This is our target list. So my point though about you know, experimentation being part of building out that target list, once you have it, you want to make sure that you save. And this is another one of the great features of Sales Navigator, is that you can have unlimited number of search parameters saved. So once you have a data set that you like, that you feel like this is a good list of prospects and this targeting works well, you're going to save that. Now, down the road, different individuals might qualify for that data set, that filter set, and then, you know, they'll be added into that mix. But that's why you want to make sure that you save your relevant searches so that you have them for the future. And then the other thing that is really excellent that happens once you have started to prospect on the channel and have figured out some of those parameters that really allow you to hone in on your ideal customer, is that the platform will start spotlighting for you individuals that you should be prioritizing because of activity that they've had on the channel. So for example, like if you have a set of targeting in place, there's a whole bunch of, there's like 300 people that meet that criteria. But of that 300 people, there's 2 that have changed job titles in the last 90 days. Those 2 individuals are excellent person for you to prioritize in your outreach, because they might be more open to having a conversation about your service versus somebody that's been in the position that they have for 10 years and feel like, yeah, I've heard the pitch, I'm not interested. So, I mean, and that's just one example, but the sales spotlight can give you it provides you an excellent way to prioritize who you should be spending your time reaching out to. And then the other piece that is excellent and very powerful in the Sales Navigator is this, and you see, view similar. Whenever you identify, and I think that this is the way that I've utilized this in the past, is that once a prospect is converted, and maybe they haven't actually signed the bottom line yet, or they haven't written out a check, but they have provided all the signals that mean they're ultimately going to convert as a customer. Then what I've done is went back to Sales Navigator and utilized the view similar feature to find who are some other people that are just like that person, and then prioritized reaching out to those individuals, because I know, hey, this particular guy was a great fit and converted. So what other individuals do you recommend, LinkedIn? Because the thing is that there is targeting information going on behind the scenes that you might not actually recognize, that the LinkedIn machine learning going on in the back end might, and then provide, a lead, push that lead to the top of your feed and say, wait a second, this is probably somebody you should zero in on. So very powerful across the board, and you do definitely want to make sure that you're utilizing all those features if you do add on the Sales Navigator to your sales team's approach. A couple of other things you always want to make sure that you can make sure that you do within Sales Navigator, because honestly, they're powerful tools that are available there, is you can organize all of your leads in your funnel with whatever system of tags you want. I guess the point here is that you don't have to take your lead list out of LinkedIn. You can organize them within the platform, which is great, because gone is the having a bunch of different spreadsheets on your desktop that you're navigating through. Instead, it can all live right in LinkedIn. Another key piece here in the middle with the setting up alerts for various leads. I mentioned how within the app you can get real-time updates on your tagged leads. Setting up alerts is another way to make sure that you're totally aware of what's going on with those top tier targets. So if you have 300 people that are ideal potential customers for you, there's probably 25 in there that are, oh man, if we could land that whale, that would be the best. That would be the best signing of the year. Those are the ones that you want to set up alerts for, so that everything that's going on with that lead, and you have the opportunity to get in front of them if something happens in their professional life that provides an opening for you to have a really compelling conversation, whether it's a job title change or a merger or whatever it may be. But definitely utilizing those alerts so that you stay on top of your prospects. It's a great thing to make sure you leverage as well. And then finally, on the end here, you can also add notes onto your prospects. So again, kind of going back to the point I made a few minutes ago about, you don't have to be migrating this content out of LinkedIn. Everything can live in the platform, and that makes it easy for you to organize. It means that things aren't going to get lost. Nothing's on Post-it notes on your desk. It's all living within the platform. So that's excellent. Just keeping yourself organized more than anything, but then also making sure that if there are prospects that have done something to bubble to the surface and, garner your attention, you're aware of it. So,
Rob, we have a question.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you, this is kind of with, and you may answer this, the question is, for people that use like Salesforce, is this something that, do they talk? Do they communicate with each other? Or is this for maybe somebody that doesn't have Salesforce? Because obviously Salesforce is another one of those items that's like a CRM, and it can be costly to some companies. Is this LinkedIn maybe kind of a replacement for that in some way?
That's really a great question, because I mean, ultimately it kind of comes down to at what point are we migrating prospects out of LinkedIn and putting them into Salesforce? What is the point where they become a true sales qualified lead versus something that I've got living in LinkedIn that, is kind of an ideal prospect? Honestly, I think that that's really, it's really kind of up to the organization to decide like how we qualify sales, marketing qualified lead versus sales qualified lead. I mean, typically the way that I say is best to do this is, once somebody has responded to an email or you talk to them on the phone, that's the point that they go in your CRM. Until then, they can kind of live in one of these other platforms, because, you don't really want to have your CRM littered with all these people that like, yeah, I mean, I wanted that to work out. And I sent them a lot of messages on LinkedIn, but nothing came of it. So that's normally the way that we'll characterize the two for individuals. But yeah, in terms of the how the two platforms speak to one another, I'd have to take a look into that. Unless Becca, are you?
Yeah, I
do you know?
I can chime in. There's definitely extensions for those two platforms to integrate.
Yeah, I assumed there was, but I didn't want to just say, "Oh yeah, it definitely does." Like, oh, well, actually, no.
Yeah, there definitely are. I would definitely agree with Rob that LinkedIn is not going to replace your CRM, right? LinkedIn should help feed contacts into your CRM, but your Salesforce is really what contains and should house all of that information.
So that being said, just wrapping things up with Sales Navigator, one of the pieces that I mentioned earlier is in-mail messages. This is, and I had mentioned at the time that this is a powerful feature that comes along with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And really simply because you're able to send a message to, like I said, somebody who is not connected with you on a person-to-person basis. They have some advertising options to expand the reach of your in-mails, which Becca is going to speak to in a second. But if you do have, when I was describing that, the top 25, top 50 individuals that are like, this is the target best prospect in my pipeline that I really want to convert on, that's the person that you would send an in-mail message to. And here we've kind of broken down the various components of an in-mail message. The thing I will call out the most though here is that if you've ever gotten an in-mail message and you have to scroll through the in-mail message, that's the point where someone's probably not going to respond. So with in-mail messages, you do want to make sure that while you do have characters allocated to you, that you keep it pretty short and sweet. And the way that you do that is by, quickly introducing yourself, providing a personal touch so that it demonstrates that you're actually aware of who this person is, that you've done your research, so on and so forth. But then, the other important piece is that in your in-mail message, you actually have a call to action. And as obvious as that sounds, that's the piece that a lot of times people forget to include, is just, hey, if there's an opportunity next week, let's jump on a call. Here's a link to my scheduler, or here's my phone number, whatever it may be. But just making sure that you give them that call to action that encourages them to do something after they receive the in-mail message. Just like I said, if that's left out, then in-mail messages, you're just kind of shooting them off into the void and hoping that like somebody decides, oh, you know what? I really find the introduction of this in-mail message compelling. I'm going to reach out to them. That's most likely not the case. So you do want to make sure that no matter what, you provide that call to action in there.
We have
a question.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. This one is actually a great point. The subject line on the email makes it or breaks it. Should it be short and ambiguous or longer and specific, or I would say an in between?
That's fun. So I'll answer that, and I'll let Becca answer it too, because I think we both had experience with this. I have seen catchy subject lines in email messages do great things. I have seen ambiguous messages do great things. I have seen both not deliver results. So I think it really kind of comes down to who your target is. Mm-hmm. I think that when if we're talking owners, C-suite, so on and so forth, I don't know that those individuals necessarily have the time to entertain snarky subject lines. Mm-hmm. And so they're probably going to be more dismissive. And snarky that's a harsh word, but I think everybody knows what I mean. Like something that's eye-catching, they might have less time for that. And so in those cases, I think like a more informative, longer subject line is the way to go. So, I mean, I think it's a matter of know your audience. Take a look at who the individual is and think through what their day-to-day experience is probably like on LinkedIn. And if it's a salesperson that you know is probably on LinkedIn all the time, then that's the sort of person that having like that more catchy subject line is going to be the one that they zero in on.
Yeah, and I would chime in and say, I don't think there's any, silver bullet. I think this is something you need to experiment with a little bit. So, when you're sending out the 20 in-mails per month, trying maybe 10 and 10 that have different subject lines or different approaches to subject lines, see what works with your audience, with your content, what resonates. And then obviously you can sort of iterate off of those learnings. So yeah, no total secret sauce. But I've done a little bit more on sort of the email side. And when you think about subject lines, sometimes variety is helpful, but also sort of field testing what you assume people are going to respond to.
Yep.
Did
you see the other question that was in there? And you may touch into this for you, Becca, from Constant Contact.
I did, yes. Since we ran through email, I wasn't going to touch on that anymore, but Brian was asking about Constant Contact as an email platform. I will say, I think Constant Contact is probably my least favorite email marketing platform. There are a lot that are fairly similar, like MailChimp, that are really basics, and they'll do what you need them to do, but they're not going to integrate well with a lot of other platforms. I think you might not see all of the results and leverage all the different features from other platforms that might be a little bit better. One that I am a big fan of, Brian, is called Active Campaign. It actually has full CRM functionality in there if it's ever something that you want to consolidate, but I've also used it just for marketing automation. It's similar pricing, but much more robust, and I've seen better results using that particular platform. So off the top of my head, if I had to recommend another platform relative to Constant Contact, which again, it probably does what you need it to do, but Active Campaign would be the one that I would recommend off the bat.
Okay. Last note quickly about Sales Navigator before we pivot a little bit on our focus with LinkedIn is just with your Sales Navigator account, you're also able to pull additional contact information like phone numbers. So definitely kind of keep that in mind too, that you can have that additional piece of contact information in your back pocket. And again, for that top 50 folks, you can add into the mix. I'm gonna give them a phone call as well. So definitely keep that in mind. And then, also you can always leverage one of those scraping tools like we talked about at the very top of the webinar to find their email address. LinkedIn won't give you their email address, but there are other tools out there that will. And so, with that, grab their email address, and then you can add them into, like one of those cold calling 2.0 workflows like we talked about earlier. All right. So that being said, outside the Sales Navigator, I'm going to hand the baton over to Becca, who's going to talk about some of the advertising opportunities on the platform.
Yeah, so everything we just talked about with Rob is, with Sales Navigator, it's all about quality over quantity. So you have very personalized outreach. You're identifying the really top prospects and keeping tabs on them. The three things I'm about to touch on are all opportunities to continue leveraging LinkedIn's fantastic targeting capabilities, but on a larger scale. So the first one is lead generation ads. So through LinkedIn advertising, you can actually set up ads. There's an example here on the left. So AdRoll runs this report. And if you want to click on the report, you just click the download button. And then directly in LinkedIn, because LinkedIn already has, your email address and your contact information and your name, that all auto-populates in this form directly on LinkedIn. So it's essentially 2 clicks and a user gets, this e-commerce report, which they are interested in, and you get their contact information, knowing that they are qualified enough that they wanted to take a look at the asset that you're offering. So this is just a really good way to leverage LinkedIn's targeting capabilities. So you can set all the criteria that Rob talked about. You can set audiences within LinkedIn advertising and say, I only want these people to view this ad that I'm running. So they're qualified. And then this is really just lowering the bar for them to take the next step and get in touch with you and become a qualified lead for you. On the next slide, we do walk through the key to lead generation ads, and it's all about strong content. You can sort of think about lead generation ads as a transaction. They are giving you their contact information and allowing you to reach out to them in the future. So they need something in return. So an example would be, a white paper that they can just immediately read and it's interesting and they're getting added value. Looking at some of the content dues here. So viewing this as a transaction, they're giving their email, they're getting some type of valuable asset. Again, making sure it's super valuable to that target audience. You can certainly pitch yourself in the deliverable, usually more towards the end, so that there's information about your company in there when they get to that point in the deliverable. And then also in the ad itself, and potentially even with the content that you develop, make sure that it's as specific to the audience as it can be. So, if you've got, for example, with Tribal Vision, let's say, one audience that we go after is professional services, so like IT companies and similar prospects. We want to make sure that the content that we're putting out is going to resonate directly with that audience. So the white paper, we might have multiple versions of a white paper for the different industries that we're trying to target. So I think that sort of speaks exactly to the content don'ts. Don't make it salesy. Everyone will see right through that and they're not going to feel value from it. And then also don't generalize across sectors. So don't give, if you're doing all this good work of targeting by industry upfront in your advertising campaigns on LinkedIn, don't let that go to waste and then just give people sort of a generalized asset. So you can sort of tweak the content to make sure it works for the audience and adds a lot of value for them. On LinkedIn, on the next slide, there's also, in addition to lead generation, there's also a type of campaign called sponsored content. This is essentially getting some more eyeballs and getting your target audiences to see content that you've got that's valuable. Here's an example from Tribal Vision. It's a report that we put together called "What Good Dating and Marketing Have in Common." A little bit punchy, just an interesting topic that you wouldn't usually think of marketing in that context. But this goes, offers people directly a link to the white paper, which exists on our website on a landing page, and people just provide their contact info, and then they can get the white paper. So this is just an alternative form of advertising on LinkedIn, where you can really put your content out there and get people to engage with it. As we spoke to earlier, if this is something that you wanted to use for retargeting or for the prospecting list that you've already gotten your email, you have the ability to target by those criteria in LinkedIn as well. And then the third additional piece or way that you can leverage LinkedIn is sponsored in-mail. So obviously Rob already talked about the fact that with in-mails, you might get like 15 or 20 in Sales Navigator, but you can also through LinkedIn, you can pay separately and have campaigns with just sponsored in-mails to reach out to other users on LinkedIn. So, again, if you've got a list, let's go back to cold calling 2.0. If you've got a list of 500 people that you sent into the workflow, maybe you have a smaller segment now of 100 people that opened multiple or clicked emails. Maybe those are the people that you start sending sponsored in-mail to, because they're a little bit interested, they're maybe a little more qualified. Let's try hitting them on another channel and engaging them that way. Excellent. I know we are running out of time a little bit here, so I'm going to go through paid search fairly quickly. Everything we just talked about with LinkedIn is all about leveraging its targeting capabilities and reaching the audience that you think is going to be the right fit. In contrast, the power of paid search, which we're about to talk about, is allowing you to get in front of people with high intent right in their time of need, right when they're searching for something. And as long as you are a good fit for what they're searching for, that's the perfect time to be found by your target audience. So paid search shows up in, if you go do a Google search, the top few results that show up will be paid ads on top of any other organic search results that make sense for that search query. Typically, the way we set up campaigns, seems like people are sort of new to paid search with the poll. Just to give you guys a quick overview, you typically set this up with multiple campaigns that have a broad theme, and then you get more granular in ad groups under the campaigns, and each specific ad group would have specific keywords and ads that you're sending out. So if someone types in, marketing agency Boston, then we have that as a keyword in one of our ad groups, and one of the ads that we have specifically set up for anyone who searches that query, then we can specifically mention, speak to that keyword that they search for. So sort of the power of paid search is that you can have all of these high intent keywords, like, hey, I would really love to show up for this keyword that people are searching for. Now you can, and paid results will jump on top of up higher on the page than organic results. So just when people are searching, those are the first things that they come across. A few different types of campaigns that we would recommend. So the first one would be non-branded campaigns. So an example for Tribal Vision, as I was sort of getting to there, we bid on keywords like digital marketing agency, Boston marketing agency. So really trying to get in front of people who we are relevant to, but they don't know about us, right? Because they're not searching for Tribal Vision. So really trying to expand our reach. And we can assume that if someone is searching for marketing or Boston marketing agency, yeah, they're going to be a pretty good fit for us. And when they're searching that right in that moment, we want to show up for that search query. Not going to go into too much detail here, but Google has a lot of different tools that you can use to look into what keywords make sense. Is there even search volume behind some of these keywords so that you can help put together a list and say, here's the complete set of keywords that I want to show up for, and then you start organizing those into ad groups and campaigns. You start setting up ad copy for those particular keywords. Looks like Ishmael just asked a question on, should we consider Bing ads or SEO with them, or just concentrate, not sure what Alphabet is, but on a group of sites? Yes, absolutely. Oh, okay, perfect. So yes, definitely. Bing is a great alternative to Google. Google gets far more traffic. So if you're looking for kind of bang for your buck, Google is the right place to start. Bing is sort of a logical extension if you see that you're getting a lot of traction on Google, or often we see Bing has lower cost per clicks on ads. So you might get a few more results off of Bing. So I think that's a very smart way to think about it, that often those two work together. Tribal Vision certainly uses both Bing and Google to advertise on paid search. We just typically use Google as the example because it's more common and more well known. And then I 100% agree with your comment about SEO. Everything that we're talking about here with paid search is paid, right? So you're trying to get clicks, you're trying to get in front of the right people, but at the end of the day, every click that you get is going to have a cost associated with it. If you are not doing SEO and organic search and optimizing your website for SEO, then you're only putting your eggs in the basket of paid, right? So I would put probably equal focus on both paid and unpaid for Google results, so that it would be an ideal situation if you are, for Tribal Vision, if someone types in Boston Marketing Agency, boom, we have an email, so we have an ad up top, so we're the first result, and then maybe we also have, a secondary organic listing that just gives us more of a chance that people will trust us, click on us, and we get a little bit of additional real estate. So very, very important to also do SEO. I think that's a really good point.
I think the way I always characterize it is that paid search works really well in the short term, as where SEO is more of a long game, where it's going to just take more time focusing on. If you focus on SEO, it's going to take longer for you to get results where you're appearing, in the top 3 slots in the organic results. That's just going to take longer. As where paid search, if you have, the campaigns built out correctly, it's going to take 2 weeks and you're going to be appearing at the top. But to Becca's point, they're both very important. It's just in the short term, you're going to focus on paid search. And then, while paid search is running, you continue to tweak your SEO strategy.
Great. Yeah, excellent. And sorry, I know I'm zipping through this very quickly, but in addition to non-branded campaigns, this may seem unintuitive, but we actually really recommend doing branded campaigns as well, so that people who are already familiar with you are making sure that you show up top of the results and really maintain your brand presence if they already know about you and are searching for you. So for example, Tribal Vision, we bid on Tribal Vision or different variations of that, different misspellings. So that's just another campaign to keep in mind. And then one more type of campaign on paid search. We've alluded to this earlier, but you have the ability to do retargeting audiences. So you can set up a pixel on your website. It's easier than it sounds. And anyone who's visited your website in the past 60 days or 30 days or 90 days, whatever window you want to set it to, you can retarget those people and say, I know if they've come to my website, they're extra qualified. Those are the people I want to continue getting in front of when they're searching for the keywords I want to show up for.
And with the retargeting, Becca mentioned this earlier in the presentation, that can be specific to an individual page on your website. So if you have 5, 6 different products and you want to have different retargeting ads for each one of those products, all you have to do is set the campaign to fire that ad to individuals that looked at that product, that product's page on your website. It's that simple. So definitely keep the remarketing in mind.
Great. And I think this slide speaks a little bit to Ishmael, a question that you had asked earlier about where to direct people once you've got their attention and their click, right? So here we laid out an example of a landing page that we would want to direct people to. And you'll notice that there's a few things that we've got in here. We have literally repeated verbatim the keywords that people were searching for, so that they understand, yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. They do what I want. You can see that there's a call to action here. So there's a form on the right-hand side. It's above the fold. It's not a lot of info for you to fill out. We just make it very, very easy for people to take that call to action. And then you can notice a few other things that we've included here, just some intro copy so people can read up a little bit more. We have some social proof in the bottom right, but overall, above the fold, so that this full landing page shows up in any window that someone opens this in. We've just got really impactful, really optimized experience and content intended to convert people. So to the earlier question, this is the type of landing page that we would recommend directing leads to once you've got them to click and you know that they're interested. And then the final thing I wanted to mention for paid search in particular is that they've got some really, really advanced algorithms that you can leverage and do what's called smart bidding versus having someone internally at your company try to optimize all of your campaigns. So if I was managing a campaign without smart bidding, I could look at what time are people engaging, which ads, which campaigns, what locations. But there's a lot of other behind the scenes info that Google or Bing would have, details into what apps they're using or what language they're speaking in or what their ad creative preferences are. It's all a little bit creepy. I know we all know that Google has more info on each individual than we'd like, but all of that can be pulled together and leveraged through smart bidding in Google's AI. So that was a really quick overview of paid search. I know we're running out of time and Haley has a few things she wants to get to. So I think we should be able to send around this deck and these slides afterwards for you guys to take a look at. The things that we didn't quite get to, one was reporting, and then also we had a bonus section on updating your sales process. So I know we had a lot to get through today. I know we didn't quite make it all the way, but hopefully this is a lot of good stuff to run through.
Yeah, so I think the biggest part now is a lot of people are, and may ask a question, well, why does Mass MEP, what's the connection, right, with Tribal Vision and Mass MEP? So we as Mass MEP, we're a manufacturing extension partnership. We work with all the manufacturers. We'd love to have all the manufacturers work with all of them, but we work with manufacturers in the state of Massachusetts. And the reason we work with Tribal Vision is they are a third party with us. We actually use them as well. They do our website. We get great insight from them on information on such topics as these. We have our own internal webinars. We have one this week coming up for social media. So I might be tapping into both of these two resources right here and saying, hey, what are some highlights I can hit for our own internal staff for these purposes to help them. But we also offer 20 individual courses that have phases. And the courses are, we have the Amazon marketing, branding and design, market research, market plan implementation. It can go on and on, website development. But the programs that we offer, it's a 50-50 matching grant through the Workforce Training Fund program. So that's where we fall into place, and that's where our role comes in as Mass MEP. So we can connect you with Travel Vision, and they will do a super, super deep dive into your company, what fits for you, what's going to help you excel or get to that next level. And obviously through today with the pandemic and the way it's changed, they've done the same. And so, you know, them coming in and really getting to know each of you and finding ways to help you sustain, keep growing or maintain whatever it is that you want to do. What are your goals as a manufacturer in the state of Massachusetts? We're that connector. So we can work with those grants. Like I said, it's a 50-50 matching grant, and it is done through the Workforce Training Fund. We have a lot of great grant writers on our side that we work with, and we will definitely get, put everybody in touch with that. So that's kind of where we fall into play. I do want to thank both of you though, Becca and Rob. Great content. Obviously, we were joking about the 1 hour. I guess 2 hours wasn't enough either, but that's okay. We might maybe we'd have to do like a part 2 of this. But honestly, while we were doing this, I was even doing some social media posting like, hey, if you're not on here, you are missing out. Like this, the return on this investment it was your time, was your investment, and your return on this was, infinite. I mean, it was beyond what anybody could imagine what they gained from these last 2 hours. So thank you so much for doing that. Thanks for everybody for attending today. If anybody has any questions, you can reach out to myself. It's Haley, HAYLEYS at massmep.org. And you can also go to our website at massmep.org, and we can definitely get you in touch with Rob and Becca. We have project managers that are on top of this as well. So some of them are in here today, and it actually maybe gave them some learning points too that they can use moving forward with. We do the same thing in making sure that, their lead generation and they're touching with those clients. So yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll make sure we get the decks out to everyone. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions.
Thanks, Haley, and everyone. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
You too.